Hoodoo, the Akan term Undu, meaning medicine from roots, trees, plant life. Undu, to become heavy with the spirit through spirit possession, spirit communication, divination. Cast, the Akan term Guasi, to project, to throw, release. Cast, to form into a mold, to solidify. Hoodoo cast, to project our sacred mold of Akan Ancestral Religion in North America, the solidification of our identity, our ritual culture of medicine for healing and defense, our ritual culture of spirit communication for knowledge and application. Hoodoo cast, for the preservation of our people and the eradication of our enemies.
Chill mode, that means greetings to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people. Say we want to thank you once again for tuning in to Hoodoo Cast, podcast for authentic Hoodoo, Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. I am Odwirafo Kwesi Radnehempata Akan. So this is episode 7, and we want to address the proper notion of identity in the Hoodoo religion. Of course, as we've proven again and again, Hoodoo is Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. That means Akan people, Akan ancestresses and ancestors who brought Akan Ancestral Religion into North America from the regions of contemporary Ghana and Ivory Coast over 300 plus years ago, preserved our traditions. We are descendant spiritually through successive Bebra, which is the Akan term for reincarnation, but of course also genetically as well. We are the same Akan ancestresses and ancestors who have reincarnated, returned through our blood circles of our descendants hundreds of years later. We are the same Akan people who were forced from the continent, who used to live in these regions and practice Akan Ancestral Religion. Our descendants, generation after generation after generation, who were forced into North America, and some of us were forced on these ships of enslavement into North America and so forth, and we fought wars against the whites in our offspring. We died in the Western Hemisphere and so forth, and watched our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren and so forth. We watched them generation after generation after generation from the ancestral realm, the realm that we call Asamando, the ancestral realm in the Akan language. And at some point, our great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter or grandson grows up and gets married. It's time for them to bring a child into the world and so forth, and our spirit is drawn back into the womb. And then 40 weeks later, we're born into the world, and this is the return of the Akan ancestor or Akan ancestress who first brought Akan Ancestral Religion to North America hundreds of years ago. We are that same Akan ancestor, that same Akan ancestress, practicing the same ancestral religion we brought 300 plus years ago, utilizing the Akan term Undu to describe the tradition. Now, we want to talk about the term race, because there are many people putting forth this false idea that Hoodoo is open to any race. Only Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people can practice Hoodoo, and that is true of any African ancestral religion, African traditional religion. Non-black individuals are incapable of practicing any form of ancestral religion. If you see any non-black individual, whether they're white, white American, white European, white Asian, white Hindu, white Arab, white pseudo-Native American, white Hispanic, white Latino, Latina, and so forth, and they are claiming ancestral religion, claiming African ancestral religion, claiming Hoodoo, claiming Voodoo, claiming Juju, claiming Wanga, claiming any of our ancestral traditions, they are 100% frauds, charlatans, scammers, schemers, and so forth. They are racially incapable of communicating with any deity and any honored ancestral spirit of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. They are racially incapable. That means spirit-genetically, they are incapable. No deity, no Orisha, no Abosom, no Voodoo, No Arusi, no divinity has ever communicated with them, nor possessed them, and never will. That's been true for thousands of years, since ancient Khanit and Kemet, Egypt and Nubia and so forth, and that is true today, and that is true cosmologically. That will never change. Now, of course, we need to understand that, because as the parasites that they are, the whites and their offspring always seek to attach themselves to the host. A parasite needs a host to survive. When you see the whites and their offspring attempting to parasitically attach themselves to the Hoodoo tradition or any other Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit tradition, African black tradition, understand the parasitical nature of these entities. Now, we're going to properly identify race, identity, what it means to be Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African, black, and so forth. Many individuals have put forward the false notion that there's no such thing as race, that the term black comes from Europeans and so forth, and the term race and its cosmology comes from Europeans. That is totally inaccurate. They say the same thing about the term Africa. Now, one of the books we have published 31 books to date. One of those books is called Afuraitkaitnit, the origin of the term Africa. And we show in the book, and we're going to place that image on the screen. This is a book you can download for free. You can download all of our 31 books for free. We show the etymological origin of the term Africa, the cosmological origin of the term Africa, and how it is integrated into ritual in ancient Khanit and Kemet thousands of years before Europeans even exist in the world. So the foolish idea that Africa is a Latin term, or it comes from the Greek language, or it comes from Arabic, or it comes from Phoenician, or it comes from Sanskrit and so forth, we expose the fraud of all those false etymologies in our book. We go into detail showing the cosmological and etymological origins. First and foremost, the most ancient title of the creator in ancient ancestral culture is Ra. Ra is not the sun god, Ra is the creator of the universe. The most ancient title of the creatress is Ra'et. So Ra and Ra'et are the creator and the creatress. In the Akan language, Ra is called Inyonkumpon, and Ra'et is called Inyonkunton, the creator and creatress of the universe. In the Yoruba tradition, just to compare, Odumare is the term for Ra, the creator. Oshumare, the rainbow serpent and so forth, is the term for the creatress. In the Eve tradition, the Vodou tradition and so forth, Da is the creator of the universe, Aidahuedo is the creatress. And they're shown as rainbow serpents swallowing the tail and so forth. You'll find that in the Yoruba tradition, you'll find that in the Eve tradition in Vodou, you'll find that in the Akan tradition, the great circular serpent and so forth, the rainbow serpent. You find that in ancient Kemet, the great circular serpent swallowing the tail and so forth, the creator and creatress of the universe, the male and female complementary life force spirits that create and sustain the universe. Now, one of the titles of Ra, as well as Ra'et, when they are moving through matter, is Afu Ra and Afu Ra'et, which becomes Afraid and Afraid and Afri and so forth. Afu means flesh, but it also means house or place of residence. So when the spirit penetrates the flesh, just like when the spirit penetrates the earth and so forth, the energy moving through earth becomes the flesh or the house or place of residence for the spirit. When the spirit of Ra and Ra'et first penetrated the primordial earth, that spirit operating through the primordial earth was operating through matter. The term for matter is Afu. That's also the term for flesh and so forth, but also house or place of residence. So when Ra is moving through matter, Ra is moving through the Afu. He is called Afura. When Ra'et, the divine living energy on the feminine side, is moving through matter, she's moving through Afu. She's called Afu Ra'et. Now, in the book, you'll see that the term Ka, as well as Ka'et, these are the male and female terms for soul and divine or divine consciousness. So your Ka is your soul for an Afurakani man. Your Ka'et is your soul, your divine consciousness for the Afuraitkaitnit woman. So the divinity that governs your head, a male divinity if you're male, a female divinity if you're female, that is your Ka or your Ka'et. In Akan, that's called Kra, and Krawa for the women, Kra for the males. In Yoruba, that's the Ori, Inu, the inner Ori, the divinity, the Orisha, the head region. And Akan, that's the Abosom in the head and so forth. In Igbo, that is the Chi, the Arusi, or the deity that dwells in the head region and so forth. In Vodun, it is the Selido, the Vodou that governs you, that governs your head and so forth. The term Ka and Ka'et are the male and female terms for soul, divine consciousness in ancient Khanit and Kamit, Nubia, and Egypt. However, most importantly, the term Ka and Ka'et, these male and female terms, are also the masculine and feminine terms for hill, highland, mountain, land above the surface of the water. The first landmass that rose up above the surface of the primordial water at the beginning of the formation of Earth is called Ka on the masculine side and Ka'et on the feminine side. So when we show this image in the books and so forth, the first landmass breaking through the surface of the water, we talk about how the spirit of Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress, penetrated the primordial earth, penetrated the ocean floor and so forth. That energy caused volcanic eruptions on the ocean floor. Those volcanic eruptions caused the surging up of a landmass to break through the surface of the water. That first high land was the first landmass of Earth. It is called Ka and Ka'et. Like we say mountain or hill in ancient Kemet, they will say Ka, Ka'et, the masculine and feminine aspects of this raised land. The first landmass, the primordial mound and so forth that you hear about in the cosmologies, that first primordial mound from which plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, human life emerged, that's the first Ka, or Ka'et. When Ra, the creator, and Ra'et move through that primordial landmass, they are Afura and Afuraiet. They are moving through matter. Afura is moving through the primordial Ka, the primordial landmass. Afuraiet is moving through the primordial Ka'et, the primordial landmass, the primordial raised mound. The Ka of Afura is the land Ka of Afura, the creator, that is Afuraka, the land of the creator. The Ka'et is the land, the raised land on the feminine side of Afuraiet, that is Afuraitkaitnit, the land of the creatress. So Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnit, the land of the creator, land of the creatress, that is the primordial mound, and that primordial mound, of course, is found on the continent of Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnit, Africa, and eventually, as the waters began to recede and the land masses emerged, and eventually the primordial great supercontinent broke up into different pieces and so forth, that centerpiece, that heartland is still Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnit, the land of the creator, land of the creatress. That is the origin of the name of the continent. So we go into detail about that, and we also show that we also call the continent Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnit. This foolish idea that African people didn't have a word for a continent, pure stupidity. We prove that in the book. Moreover, when the first people were fashioned from that primordial black soil, that primordial landmass and so forth, they were fashioned from that. These are our ancestresses and ancestors, and the spirit of Ra and the spirit of Ra'et moved through primordial human beings. So these spirits, these individuals, these ancient men and ancient women were possessed by and animated by the creator and creatress. When we say we are Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, that means we have the flesh, Afu, that contains the spirit of Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress, moving through our physical body, and our physical body, the melanin within our physical body that causes us to have color and so forth, that comes from the primordial black substance of the primordial black mound, Ka and Ka'et. So an Afurakani individual, Afuraitkaitnit individual, and you always hear us say that, Afurakani became Afurakan and African and African and so forth, but the Afurakani individual, the Afuraitkaitnit individual, we are children of Afura and Afuraiet. We are children of the creator and creatress. Black people, as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African people, are the only people who have the capacity to possess Ra and Ra'et, and they manifest as Afura and Afuraiet within our spirit genetic bodies. So we have a direct link to the creator and creatress, just like plant life, animal life, mineral life. All Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people, have that capacity to be possessed by and animated by the creator and creatress. Non-black individuals do not have that capacity. They do not have a divinity that governs the head. They don't have a Ka or Ka'et, soul or divine consciousness. They also don't have a Ba or a Ba'et, the divine living spirit entity that's placed in each Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit person. So in our book, the Okra complex, the soul of Akan, we talk about the nature of the soul, the divine consciousness, the divinity that governs the head, and why only black people have that divinity in the head region. This is what distinguishes us from all non-black individuals spiritually, and therefore we're the only ones who have the capacity for spirit possession and spirit communication. So that separates us, which is a good thing. So you can get all those details in the book Afurakai, the origin of the term Africa, and the book The Okra Complex, the soul of Akan. Now that's our identity specifically as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. Now we move into the etymological origin and cosmological origin of the term black. Now once again, misinformation is rife throughout the internet and other circles and so forth. Misguided individuals as well as brainwashed individuals who deep down inside they have low self-esteem, so they don't want to identify with black. They're so fearful of the word black that they put forward idiotic notions that black means death and black is not something that we've ever called ourselves and black comes from European languages. Pure stupidity. When you hear individuals putting forth that false information, we shouldn't use the word black. Pure stupidity is rooted in self-hatred. They hate the word Africa because they've been taught by the whites in offspring that African is inferior. They don't know anything about Afuraitkaitnit, the land of the creator, land of the creatress, children of Afura, children of Afuraitkaitnit. When they hear the term black, Europeans told them that black is inferior, so they want to pretend like we've never used that term. And the term comes from the European language family. Actually, the term black has its etymology and cosmology that we've proven in our publications and in our workshops and classes and so forth, comes directly once again from our ancestral language of Kamit. It can be found in the Medutu, in the hieroglyphs and so forth. So in this cosmogram we're going to show on the screen, this time we're utilizing our cosmogram to show the Hoodoo identity racially and culturally, spirit-genetically. Now, on the bottom piece you'll see the term Bri, B-I-R-I. Biri, that is the term in the Akan language for black or dark. Akan people call black people generally Ebibri Fo, the group of people Fo who are Bri, black. Ebibri Fo means someone, Obi. So it's Obi, Bri, Fo. Fo means group of people, as in folks or group of people. Bri means black, B-I-R-I, and Obi means someone. So Obibri Fo means the group of people who are black. Obibri Ni means a black individual. Ebibri Mine means the black, Bri, or mine, or nation. That is the general term when describing the nature of the continent of Afuraitkaitnit, and African black people. We say Ebibri Mine or Ebibi Mine, the black nation. Ebibri Fo, black people. Obibri Ni, a black individual. Bri also means strong and powerful. Now there's another term in the Akan language. The term is Tum, T-U-M. We'll show that on the screen and so forth. Tum also means black or dark. Tum or Tum also means black or dark. But the root Tum also means power. And Otumfo is one of the group of people, Fo, who has Tum or power. So when you look at Otumfo, a powerful person, it's also Tum, meaning black. From the root term Tum, meaning black or dark, but Tum also meaning power. You look at Bri, it means black, but Obrefo also means an unusually powerful person. So we've always associated the term black with power. Bri meaning black, Bri meaning powerful. Tum meaning black, Tum or Tumi meaning power. So once again, when you hear individuals saying that we've never called ourselves black, we've never used that terminology, we never called our landmass black, Akan people call ourselves Ibibri-Man, the black nation, Ibibri-Fo, black people, Obibri-Ni, black individual, and it's cosmological. When you look at the black skin of the divinity, we'll show it on the screen and so forth, the great god Amen, the masculine aspect of the supreme being called Inyame and Akan and so forth, you'll see his skin is black. We're directly descendant of Amen, and you'll also see his skin being blue, and you'll see the same thing with Amenet, the great mother. When you look outside during the daytime, of course, the infinite expanse is the sky that surrounds and encompasses all things. There's no beginning and no ending to the sky and so forth. It is blue. But at nighttime, when the sun begins to quote unquote set, that blue transforms into black, and then the infinite expanse that surrounds all things, not just our planet, but all planets, suns, moons, and stars and so forth, the primordial black substance, that is the all-encompassing Ka or Kayat soul of Amen and Amenet. That blackness, so-called dark energy and dark matter, encompasses all planets, suns, moons, stars, comets, asteroids, and all things. That is the black melanin within the black body of the great supreme being Amen and Amenet. The divine living energy, the solar fire moving within that blackness, the creative power, is Ra and Ra'et. Just like you're a being as an Afurakani man, the woman is a being Afuraitkaitnit woman. As a being, you're like Amen and Amenet. The black melanin within your body, within which your organs and glands and blood vessels and so forth dwell in, that is the Ka, Kayat, that is the black substance, that's the melanin and so forth. And then the divine living solar fire energy that surges through your system, through your physical body, your spirit body, your procreative power that you direct to your reproductive organs to create a child and so forth, that divine living solar life force energy, that is your Ra force as an Afurakani man, your Ra'et force as an Afuraitkaitnit woman. It is a portion of the divine living energy of Ra and Ra'et. So you as the great being Amen or Amenet direct your Ra force or your Ra'et force to go out and create. Just like Amen and Amenet, the great father and great mother supreme being, who are two halves of a divine whole. They're called Inyame and Inyamewa. In the Akan tradition, for example, they are the great being, and they direct their Ra force and Ra'et force to go out and create the universe. So Ra and Ra'et as creator and creatress are actually grandchildren of the supreme being Amen and Amenet. And that cosmology is consistent throughout Afuraitkaitnit, Africa, in cosmologies across the continent. So when you see the Akan term Bre, that comes from the ancient term in ancient Khanit and Kamit. Bre, Bre, sometimes is written with the symbol for the R, the open mouth and so forth. Bre, B, and R. Sometimes it's written with the wavy line for the N, but the N and the rolling R, it's changed. So BN is Bene, 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 Bene. But BR, BR with the rolling R, the tongue tapping the roof of the mouth once is Bere, Bere. So if you see BR, BR in the Medutu, the hieroglyphs, Bere, Bere, or just, not duplicated, but BR, Bere, and it's reduplicated, Bere, Bere. If you see BN, that is Bene, Bene. This is how you see that N and R interchange when you're talking about the rolling R, the tongue tapping the roof of the mouth once. BR is Bere, BN is Bene. It's the same sound. So sometimes the term is spelled with the symbol for the B and the symbol for the R, Bere. Sometimes it's spelled with the symbol for the B and the symbol for the N, Bene. And you will find the same thing in the Akan language, the interchange linguistically between the rolling R and the N. Of course, when you say N, the tongue touches the top, the roof of the mouth. Ben, when you say Ra or R, Bere, Bere, the tongue taps the roof of the mouth. And of course, once again, as we said in the previous episode, the letter L doesn't exist in ancient Kemet, and it doesn't exist in the Akan language either. So only when you have foreign words, like from the Greeks and Romans and so forth, and they use letter L's, when they tried to translate their language with the Medutu, the hieroglyphs, they had to use the symbol for the letter R to translate the L. Like Cleopatra had to be written Cri, Cleopatra. The rolling R, Cri, Cleopatra, had to be utilized because there is no L in the language of ancient Kemet. The same is true in the Akan language. There's no letter L or L sound in the Akan language. If you go throughout Ghana and so forth and you communicate in the Tree language with Akan people, you would never hear the L sound utilized at all. They also, if there are foreign words that enter into the Akan language and they try to pronounce them and they have a letter L, the Akan person will replace that with the rolling R just like we do in ancient Kemet. So for example, the term mulatto, mulatto, in Akan that's murato, 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 muratoni. The rolling R, ra, just one tap, murato, instead of murato, but murato, the tongue taps the roof of the mouth once. So there's an interchange between the rolling R and the L. If you study linguistics in any linguistics book, you'll see that the R and the L interchange. That's a common understanding in linguistics. It's proven in the Akan language. Mulatto becomes murato, murato, or muratoni in ancient Kemet. Cleopatra is translated as Cri, Cleopatra, with the glyph for the letter R and so forth. We prove that in our languages, the ancient language and the contemporary language. Why is that important? Because when you look at the etymological origin of the term black, when you look at the Proto-Indo-European language phylum or family, you will see that the term balak is from the root. You'll see that the term balak, they will say it comes from the root term B and L or B and R. Bere, bere, which later becomes belek, and some Europeans still say belek, like belek min, belek or belik, and in English is black, but they'll say belek, but it comes from bere, bere. So you'll see in Proto-Indo-European, that is the proposed language family, that's the origin of all European languages, Indo-European languages. They posit that that language family came into existence about 5,000 or 4,000 so-called BCE. So from ancient Sanskrit in India all the way across to Europe and so forth, the Proto-Germanic and Tocharian and all these different languages and so forth, their origin only begins around 5,000 to 4,000 so-called BCE, and they call that language family the Proto-Indo-European language phylum or family, the origin of all European or Indo-European languages. So in the Proto-Indo-European lexicon, and you see the entries in the Proto-Indo-European lexicon, dictionaries and so forth, they will say be and el, bel, or bere, bele, bere. Also ba and r, bere, bere is the origin of the term berek, which later became belek. So berek became belek, and later, hundreds of years later, black. But at first it's berek, that comes from bere, br or bl and so forth. And once again, the r and l interchange. They'll say that's the origin of the term. They will also state that they don't know where it comes from in Indo-European. They just know that ba and l or ba and ra, bele or bere, which later becomes berek, belek or berek and so forth, and black. They just know that those two sounds together, ba and ra, or ba and la, bere or bele, is the origin of the term black. And those two sounds together mean to shine, bright, glitter, but also to blacken, to burn, black, and dark. So the same word that means to shine or spark or glitter, white light and so forth, also means black, dark, and also means to burn and blacken and so forth. Now, of course, the association is cosmological. When you look at the Akan language, biri is the consonantal structure of B and R. Biri means black in Akan. Biri means the same thing cosmologically in ancient Kemet. And then later the Europeans learned that from us in Biri or Bili, So in comparison, you see B and R as the consonantal structure of the term black and Akan. B, R becomes Bidi, Bidi, black. You look at ancient Kemet, the hieroglyph or the medut for B and the medut for R, Bidi, as well as the B and the N, Bini, cosmologically means black as well. And then thousands of years later, after the Europeans invade northern Kemet, learn about our language, learn about our cosmology and so forth, then they learn about the terms Bidi, meaning black, to shine, bright, brilliant and so forth, but also to blacken, to burn, to harden and so forth. So they took that term Bidi, Bili, and they pronounced it Bili, Bilik, and black and so forth, and it became Bilik or Bidik or black in their languages. Cosmologically, what does it mean? In one of our books, Odumankoma, Tredriampong, we're talking about the divinity Odumankoma in the Akan culture, which is Atem in ancient Kemet, and Tredriampong, which is the same as Kepra, the beetle divinity in ancient Kemet. We're making a comparison in contemporary Akan Ancestral Religion and showing these are the same deities with the same descriptive titles from ancient Khanit and Kemet. And we touched upon the cosmology of the so-called Bin stone. Now, when you look at ancient Kemet, you'll see the Binu bird flying across, the landscape and so forth. It lands on the primordial mound after the flooding season. So when the river floods every year, overruns the banks, floods that part of the country, the people wait for the waters to recede, and once the waters recede, black silt has been deposited upon the banks of the river, and then they go out and plant their crops and so forth. So every year, the so-called Nile River or the Hapi would flood the country and so forth, and once the Hapi's flood receded, that's the time to plant your crops, and abundance will be the result of that. But when the Binu bird is flying over the waters and they are flooding and there is no landmass for the Binu bird to settle upon, at some point the waters begin to recede and the first highlands or primordial mound began to emerge from the receding water. And when they see those black primordial hills and so forth, the Binu bird will fly to one of those hills that manifest from under the surface of the water and so forth, and they will settle upon that black mound. Cosmologically, when they talk about the divinity Atem operating through the setting sun, the sun sails across the sky just like the Binu bird sails across the sky, and then eventually it sets in the west and the solar disk goes and penetrates the earth. That is akin to the first time that the sun went across the landscape, set in the west, and penetrated the primordial mound. So in ancient Kemet, the black capstone that is placed on top of the pyramid is representative of the black primordial mound, the first landmass that we just talked about, Akan and Khanit, that first landmass that rose up above the surface of the water to be the first landmass of Earth. In ancient Kemet, they would make, for example, the Great Mer or the Great Pyramid. It had white limestone all around its body that has been stripped by Arabs and so forth since then, thousands of years later. But at first, that pyramid that you see, that Mer that you see, the Great Pyramid and so forth, it was all smooth white limestone. And the capstone was a black pyramidion, a black triangular capstone. And the other so-called pyramids, or Meru as we call them, had these black capstones, and some of those capstones are in museums right now. In the Great Egyptian Museum in Cairo, you will see one of those black capstones and so forth. We have that image in the book. That primordial black capstone is representative of the first black hill that rose up above the surface of the water to become the first landmass of Earth. And they will talk about the spirit of the Binu bird, animated by the divinity Atem, settling on the first primordial landmass. That's the solar disk penetrating that first primordial hill. The hill rises up from beneath the surface of the water, is still wet and soggy and so forth. The divine living energy of Ra and Ra'et penetrate that primordial mound, fire it up, harden it, and now that's a solid substance. Now plant life, animal life, mineral life, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, human life can manifest from that first substance, that first compact substance, that first landmass. But the symbol, the black pyramidion, that was blackened because the first solar energy, the solar disk, penetrated that at the beginning of creation, fired it up, and then blackened it or hardened it and made it a solid substance from which our bodies could actually be formed. Now, that pyramidion is called Bri, the black one. When a fiery energy penetrates a solid substance, there's a spark, there's a flame, there's a shining flash, glittering, shining, white light and so forth. So when they say bere, means to shine, to flash, to glitter, bright, shining. That's the first bere, the solar disk penetrating the bere stone or the bere mound. And once that shine or flash or spark happens, when the fire energy penetrates that first landmass, then it begins to cook, quote unquote, the landmass and blackens and burns it. So the bere starts off with a flash or a fire or a spark or a shining, glittering, a luminous spark and so forth, bere, and then it manifests as bere, a blackened and hardened entity. So when you see bere, which becomes bele and belek and berek and so forth and black, and in the Proto-Indo-European language family it means to shine, bright, glittering, but also black and burned and so forth. That comes from the primordial stone, that pyramidion, that black capstone that is called bere in ancient Kemet. The bere is the black capstone, the black mound that receives the fire energy of Ra and Ra'ed moving through the solar disk. That solar disk penetrates the primordial mound, fires it up, hardens it, blackens it, makes it a solid substance and so forth. So bere, fire, light, shining, bright, spark, results in bere, black, solid, power, strong, and so forth. This is the etymological origin of bere, meaning black. It's pronounced bidi. In Akan, it's bere. In Proto-Indo-European, it becomes bele and belek, and so forth. And just like you have the term icon, and something that is iconic comes from the root icon. Something that is bere becomes berek or belek. Something that is of bere, just like iconic is something that is of an icon and so forth. Berek is something that is ek of bere, blackness. This is the origin of the term. So when they talk about black, comes from Europeans, pure stupidity. It comes from the cosmology of the Ben stone, the Bennu bird, and we go into detail about that in our book as well as some of our classrooms and so forth. So it's Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. Our bodies were formed from that first primordial landmass and so forth. The fire energy of Ra and Ra'ed moved through us. It blackened us. It made us bri, black. It made us bri, powerful. It made us tum or tum black, but also tum, powerful, because that blackness has the capacity to hold the energy in all of its manifestations. When they say don't wear black in the summertime because it consumes all of the energy, our black melanin, neuromelanin, as well as the melanin on our skin and externally and so forth, has the capacity to pull in the energy in its fullness of Ra and Ra'ed, the divine living energy of the Creator and Creatress, hold that energy, process it, and align us with forces in nature. So to be Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, children of Afura and Afuraet, you have to be able to receive the energy of Ra and Ra'ed. And because we can receive that, we are Bri, that fire, light, spark, Bri, or Bere, also burns or blackens us and hardens us and makes us strong and powerful. Bri, or Bere, we're called Ibibri, Fo, Ibibri, Mine, or Bibri, Ni, and so forth. That is black. So you have to be Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African, in order to practice Hoodoo, of course, because you have to be a child of Ra and Ra'ed. The whites and offspring are not that. You have to be black, have that black energy, that black substance within you, that melanin within you, but it has to be the kind of melanin that can receive the energy of the Creator and Creatress. The whites and offspring have no connection to Ra and Ra'ed Odumare, Oshumare, Nyankumpon, Nyankunton, Da, Ida, Wedo, and so forth.
We're taking this short break to let our viewers and listeners know about our 9 archived online Hoodoo courses. We conducted a series of 9 courses online. Some of them are 4-week courses, some of them are 6-week courses. All 9 courses are available as a special for our listeners for $50 for the entire 9-course Hoodoo set. Trustery, Cosmology, Ritual Medicine, Divination, and more. Simply go to our website, Odwirafo.com, on the Akongwa Suya page, and you can access all 9 courses. Now, back to our interview.
Now, the next phase on this cosmogram, you see the term res. We did a 6-week course on res, the etymology, biology, cosmology, and identity of race and so forth. Once again, Europeans, Eurasians started this false notion that race doesn't exist and there's no biological basis for race. Once we started studying melanin and recognized the reality that melanin recessiveness is a genetic mutation, a deficiency, so the whites and their offspring are genetically inferior and we are genetically superior, and of course we're spiritually superior, so across the board we are superior. When we began to study that, biology intensely and intently, now all of a sudden the whites and offspring come out with this false idea that there's no such thing as race. That's just a social construct. It came into being in the so-called 1800s with these different European so-called intellectuals and so forth, and there's no biological basis for race and all this other nonsense because they know we found out the truth. And some of our people repeat that misinformation as well. In reality, the term race comes directly from our ancestral language of Kamit as well. We did a 6-week course on the origin of the term race, its biological, cosmological, cultural, spiritual meaning, and so forth. So we'll just touch on it quickly. That 6-week course, of course, is available as an archive. But when you look at the origin of the term race, the etymological origin, they'll say it possibly comes from the Italian term razza, meaning family, tribe, but also root. But they will also say we don't know the origin. The origin is debated or the origin is unknown. So res, so race, meaning root, but also meaning people, tribe, nation, clan, and so forth, family. They don't know where that comes from. When you look at the term res, in Kamit, the symbol is the root. It is the root plant. It is the res plant from the south. The term res means south, resi means southern, and the resiu are the southerners, the people of the south. That is a title of the ancient Nubitu, or the ancient Nubians. People in ancient Kamit said their ancestresses and ancestors came from the resit. They were resiu, the people of the south. Now when you look at the cosmology of the res plant, the root plant, the so-called nekeb plant in ancient Kamit, the plant of the south, that is the root plant, the origin plant, the plant of the beginnings and so forth. When you look at res meaning root and res meaning rush, and you look at these sacred rushes coming out of the ground, when you see the res plant in ancient Kamit, it's talking about origins. You'll see an image of the divinity Osar, we call it Awusi in Akan, he's called Obatala in Yoruba, he's Dangbe in Vodun, different names all across the continent and so forth, but you see this image of Awusi Osar sitting on his throne. Then you see one of the rush plants or res plants, plants called rushes or reeds and bull rushes and so forth. The term rush is connected to race, as in running, race like a race, running a race, but also a race of water. The term race and rush are etymologically related, of course, rushing or racing and so forth. But the plants are called rushes because it comes from the ancient term res. The term res is the rush. The rush is the res plant, the plant of the south, the plant of the resiu people and so forth, the southerners, the Nubitu, the ancestresses and ancestors. When you see this rush open up, and then you see the 4 sons of Heru coming out of the rush and so forth, coming out of the rest or the rush and so forth. And the four sons of Heru are different shades of dark brown, medium brown, and so forth. You have these different colors, or these different resiu, or these different races, or races and so forth, different expressions of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. And you see that on the continent today. You have some people are dark brown with black undertones, dark brown with red undertones, and so forth. But when you see the people arising out of this rush plant, when you look at the language of ancient Kamit and the cosmology, and you see the Sekhet, Hetep, the divine field of peace and offerings, that is a title for the ancestral realm where the ancestresses and ancestors dwell. And within the Sekhet Hetep is the Sekhet Aru, the divine field of reeds and rushes. And the ancestresses and ancestors come out of that divine field of reeds and rushes, and their spirits come from the reeds and the rushes, and then they incarnate into the wombs of their descendants to come into the world. You look at the cosmology, you see the four sons of Heru rising out of the rush plant and so forth. Cosmologically, we talk about the people arising out of, at the beginning of creation, plant life, and the spirits coming out of the sacred reeds or rushes, coming out of the sacred res plants. The resiu people, the people of the south, the people of origins, the people of the beginning, the res people, the resu are the race people, the people of the reses or the rushes. Now you compare that with the Zulu tradition. The Zulu tradition, South Africa, Afuraitkaitnit, when they talk about the origin of human beings, they talk about Mveli Kangi, the great father of creation, the same as Amen and so forth, uniting with the female spirit, Utalanga, the field of rushes and reeds in the northern part of the Zulu territory and so forth, a great swamp full of reeds. And once Mveli Kangi connected with Utalanga, the female spirit operating within the region of the swamps with the great reeds, they said reeds began to rise up. Mveli Kangi began to create men and women from the reeds and the rushes. These men and women grew up out of the plants. They had different colors of black and brown. They came into being in pairs of men and women. And then he began to pluck these reeds and rushes. Pluck the primordial men and women from the reeds and rushes. And that is the origin of men and women. That's the origin of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people. The same thing they say in the Zulu tradition comes directly from ancient Khanit and Kamit. When we talk about pre-dynastic Kamit, we're not just talking about 4,000 or 5,000 years, so-called BC, but we have true history in Kamit going back 100,000+ years, going all the way to South Africa, Afuraitkaitnit, and so forth. Now, we cover all of this in detail in our 6-week course on res, or quote-unquote race. But the Zulu tradition preserves the same tradition that you find in ancient Khanit and Kamit. You find the same thing in the ancestral grove in the Akan tradition as well. So when we're talking about the Afurakani man and Afuraitkaitnit woman being born of the sacred primordial rush plants or rust plants or rest plants, and the different colors of dark brown, medium brown, and so forth are the different reses, rushes, quote-unquote races, and so forth, this is what we're talking about. But there are also a male divinity of the south called Res or Resi, and a female divinity called Resi. That's the male and female divinity governing the sacred primordial res plants or rush plants and so forth. Res is the origin of the term race. Res is the root plant of the south. Res is the plant from which the primordial men and women were born in pairs, men and women, men and women, men and women, and so forth. And they are the origin of all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. We are the original Res people, the Resiu, the people of the south, the root people, the people from the beginning, the Res people. We're the original Res, and we have different colors in the context of different shades of black and brown and so forth. We are the original Res people, or the original races. And the whites and offspring are degenerations of the original. They're not the original, they're not naturally occurring, but they're perversions of the original. You can have the coca plant, which is a naturally occurring plant. But when a European takes the coca plant and goes into a laboratory and creates another substance that never existed before, crack cocaine exists, but it wasn't created naturally by the Supreme Being. It's not a naturally occurring substance in creation. If Europeans didn't deliberately and in a corrupt fashion manipulate the naturally occurring coca plant, then this substance, crack cocaine, would never exist. So just because something exists in the world doesn't mean it came into being under the direction of the Supreme Being. Through perversion, the result of the perversion is the existence of a perverse product. The existence of non-black individuals, the whites and their offspring, is a perversion from the original. You have naturally occurring cells in your body, of course, trillions of cells. When some of them become cancerous, they become disfigured. That means they don't look like the other cells. They don't function in harmony with the other cells. As cancerous cells, they seek to consume and destroy the other cells. These are the cancerous cells in the body, and your body's response to them is to use the immune system and lymphatic system to isolate them, kill them, and expel them from the body. Non-black individuals are the cancerous cells in the body of black humanity. White Europeans, white Asians, white Americans, white Hindus, white Arabs, white pseudo-Native Americans, white Latinos, white Hispanics, and so forth. Non-black individuals are the cancerous cells within the body of black humanity. They are disfigured, they no longer look like us, they no longer function like us, and so forth. They've always been adverse to us for thousands of years, and that will continue until they become extinct. So this is the etymological origin, biological origin, and cosmological origin of the term res. Res is root. Res is from the south. Res is from the beginning. Res is the plant from which the original Resiu or Res people come from. These are Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people. So, when we're talking about the Hoodoo tradition, first, of course, you have to be Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African black, children of Afura, children of Afurait, the capacity to be possessed by and communicate with the creator and creatress, Yonkompon and Yonkonton, Ra and Ra'et, Odumare, Oshumare, Da, Adapuedo, and so forth. Of course, you have to be black, and there are different shades of brie, black, dark brown, medium brown, black, but we are dark brown with black undertones, dark brown with red undertones, and so forth. Our blackness is outside, but also inside. That neuromelanin and the 12 nerve ganglia and so forth, also throughout our bodies and so forth, that is blackness as well. So you have to be Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African, but you also have to be Bri, Ebibri Fo, black, and you're part of the Bibri Fo, the black or Bri, res or race, people from the root, the tribe from the root, the clan from the root, the group or family from the root, the Resiu, the Southerners, and so forth. And then we get to the point on the cosmogram at the top where it says Akan. Now, when we're talking about Hoodoo, we're talking about the Akan Ancestral Religion. Akan people bringing their religion quite naturally on the ships and so forth and into North America. Of course, they're going to continue to speak their language. They're going to continue to share their rituals with their children and so forth. They're going to continue to say Undu when they're making medicine. Undu, spirit possession, spirit communication, becoming heavy with the spirit. Undu, to feel a presentiment or foreboding of what's unfolding in the spirit realm. To make the Undu, we talked about the Odwirafo, Odutofo, Odumafo, Odunsinfo, and so forth. All the different Odu or Hoodoo practitioners in the Akan tradition that were preserved in North America and so forth. So, once again, and we've talked about this from the beginning, you have to not only be Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit or African, and of course black, Bri, and Res from the south, the root, the origins and so forth, but you must be an Akan person, an Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit or African black person who is Akan, that comes from that blood circle, that comes from the blood circle where you have the terms Moja, which is corrupted into Mojo, Hinti, which is corrupted into the Haint spirits, Jak and Jak Padie, which becomes Jack and Jack Ball and so forth. All these different terms that you find in the Hoodoo tradition are Akan terms and can only be defined properly through Akan cosmology and ritual culture. So you must be Akan because we're the ones who brought that tradition into North America. If, for example, you're Yoruba, you were forced into North America, of course, as we said before, the tradition that you preserved in North America is called Juju. Ju is a Yoruba word which means to cast or throw with regard to medicine or energy and so forth. So the Juju tradition is the Yoruba tradition in North America. If someone was Yoruba and they were forced into North America, it's not that, well, we're in North America and we can just practice the Hoodoo tradition. That's not your tradition. You're not Akan, you're actually Yoruba, so you should be tuning into the Juju tradition. You should be restoring the Juju tradition in your blood circle, just like we have restored the Akan tradition, the Hoodoo tradition, in our Akan blood circles. You would need to attune to how you preserve the various expressions of Juju culture, the Juju man, Juju woman, and so forth in North America, and restore that tradition on a firm and purified foundation. And the same is true of various other traditions. Some of our people, because they do not know who they are, if they hear the term Hoodoo or they hear the term Juju, they hear the term Voodoo and so forth, they would just say, well, that's what I practice, or they would just take an amalgamation of various practices and things that they picked up along the way and so forth, and use Hoodoo as a catch-all term for any form of black ritual expression. That comes about through misinformation, disconnection, and so forth, but it is time for us to correct the misinformation and return to our actual authentic expressions of ancestral tradition. Now, in our book, Abosom, talking about the deities that govern the 7 days of the week in the Akan tradition as well as the Hoodoo tradition, we talk about the origin of the term Khan. Khan meaning first, foremost, from the beginning. Khan also meaning to count, calculate, or reckon. Khan meaning shining, light, luminous, and so forth. So in the Akan language, when they say, why do you call yourselves Akan? Khan meaning a segment of the first group of people to exist on earth. Khan meaning first, foremost, from the beginning. Khan meaning to count, calculate, or reckon. The first people to engage in ritual measurement, the measurement of cycles of life, plant life, animal life, mineral life, the movements of the sun, moon, stars, and replicating those measurements to establish the mathematical sciences on earth and so forth, and establish civilization. So Khan meaning to count, calculate, or reckon, and Khan meaning shining, light, luminous, the first people not only to receive the light of civilization, but also to become possessed by Ra and Ra'et and Yonkumpon, and Yonkunton become illuminated through spirit possession and engage the ritual process when the spirits of the Abosom and the ancestral spirits, the Nsamanfo, possess us, move through us, guide us, teach us, heal us, protect us, and so forth. We showed that those same definitions identifying Akan people you find in ancient Khanit and Kamit. The term Khan in the language of ancient Kamit means first, foremost, from the beginning. Khan means to count, to calculate, or reckon. Khan also means shining, light, luminous, brilliant, and so forth. And Khan is also the title of the first land, foremost land, land of the beginning, land of the south, the Khan land or Khanit, ancient Nubia. The people are called Khanitu, the ancient Nubians. The Khanit people are the Akani people. In Akan language today, Akani means an Akan individual. Akan Fo means Akan people. Akan mind means the Akan nation and so forth. But Akani means an Akan individual. That comes from Khanit in the Medutu and the hieroglyphs and so forth, meaning the people of the south, the people of the first land, foremost land, land of the beginning. The Nubians are also called the Khan people or Khanitu and so forth. So this cosmogram of Hoodoo identity shows that yes, you have to be Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African, and so forth, children of Afura and Afuraiet. You must be Bri, of course, black. You must be of the Res, the source people, the root people from the south and so forth, the ancient Khanitu, the Resiu and so forth, but you also must be Akan. And finally, you see the term Amaru, which is Amaruka. When you look at the Inca tradition in ancient America and so forth, the term Amaru means the plumed serpent, the feathered serpent, the creative power feathered serpent. Ka means a highland or a mountain or a landmass and so forth. Amaru Ka means the land Ka of Amaru, the feathered serpent. That is taken from ancient Nubit and Kamit, or Khanit and Kamit, Nubia and Egypt. Of course, our people sailed over here thousands of years ago. The reason why there are pyramids in Mexico and so forth is because it's the same culture that we brought. Eventually, the Asians would invade this hemisphere and wage war against our people and bring diseases, and the Europeans would bring their filthy diseases, the Black Death and so forth, and there were great pandemics that wiped out 90+% of the entire population of ancient America. And this is why they began to bring our people in so-called slave ships and so forth hundreds of years later. But thousands of years ago, of course, we are responsible for the pyramid culture in ancient America and so forth. Amaru, the great feathered serpent, is a title of Ameru or Ame-Ra, the great plumed serpent. We go into detail about that cosmology in the third section of Afuraitkaitnit, the origin of the term Africa. We show that Amen-Ra, Ka, is the land Ka of Amen-Ra. One of the titles of Ra in the form of a sacred lion is Ru. So Ameru is a form of Amen-Ra and so forth. So Amaru, Ka, the feathered serpent, is the same feathered or plumed serpent expression of Amen-Ra or Ameru in ancient Kemet. You will see in ancient Khanit and Kemet the great tall plumes of feathers that shoot up from the crown through that crown identify Amen. And sometimes he takes the form of the great primordial serpent at the beginning of creation, sometimes called Arta or Irta and so forth. In the cosmology of Ta'apet, or so-called Thebes, they talk about the different forms of Amen in the form of the great primordial serpent. He is distinguished by those two tall feathers or plumes that is different from the various crowns that you see in Kemet. So he is the great plumed or feathered serpent in Kemet, Amen-Ra, or Ameru and so forth. When he comes over here, he is Ameru and so forth, the great plumed serpent. So we include that as the final segment of the cosmogram. So what we're saying is, in order to practice hoodoo, the only people who can practice hoodoo authentically are, of course, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people. Of course, we are black, Bri, we are of the race. The rest people, the root people, the people who came from the south, the primordial people and so forth, you must be Akan, because hoodoo is Akan Ancestral Religion, and you must be an Akan person from Ameru, America, or America, North America and so forth, where the tradition was established. The way Akan people practice Akan religion in North America is based on our interfacing with this region of Asaseafu, the fertile earth mother, Asaseya, the barren earth mother, and so forth. We have interfaced with her. We become possessed by the Abosom as they manifest in the rivers, the landmass, the different features of creation in this region of the earth mother and so forth. And we have a special relationship with this region of the earth mother's body. Therefore, the way we express Akan Ancestral Religion is slightly different than the way we expressed it when we were living on the continent. So only Akan people who have migrated to the Western Hemisphere, or were forced to migrate to the Western Hemisphere, incorporated the plant life, animal life, and mineral life into our bodies through food as well as medicine and so forth, developed a unique relationship with the unique expression of the Abosom as they manifest in this region of the Earth Mother's body, inclusive of the rivers, streams, lakes, the ocean, the mountainous regions and so forth, and the energy that manifests in this region of the Earth Mother's body. All these different things cause us to forge a locative identity. We blended ancestral blood circles, brought ancestresses and ancestors back through those blended ancestral blood circles, and people operating through this region of the Earth Mother's body with this unique energetic signature. We've incorporated that into our spirit genetic anatomy, and therefore the way the Akan people practice Akan religion in North America is slightly different, very similar but slightly different based on necessity than the way it's practiced in Ghana and Ivory Coast. The same is true of the Akan people who practice Akan Ancestral Religion in Jamaica, which is called Obia, from the Akan term Obai. They have a unique expression of Akan Ancestral Religion in Jamaica. In Suriname in South America, Akan Ancestral Religion is called Winti from the Akan term Huinti. It's a unique expression of Akan Ancestral Religion in that region of South America. In Guyana, Akan Ancestral Religion is called Komfa from the Akan term Komfoa. There's a unique expression of Akan Ancestral Religion in Guyana. So wherever Akan people have landed, they've interfaced with that region of the Earth Mother's body, interfaced with the plant life, animal life, and mineral life, and so forth, and infused Akan Ancestral Religion into this environment, forged a locative identity, blended ancestral blood circles, and continued to practice the tradition. So Hoodoo is Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. Obia, Akan Ancestral Religion in Jamaica. Winti, Akan Ancestral Religion in Suriname. Komfa, Akan Ancestral Religion in Guyana. And the various other places that we were forced to migrate to, we have unique expressions of Akan Ancestral Religion. So an Akan person from Ghana can come and connect with Akan people in North America. They can see what we're practicing, they can participate in things that we engage in, but they could never become a Hoodoo practitioner. They could observe what we're doing, but they have their own expression of Akan Ancestral Religion on the continent based on the region of the Earth Mother's body within which they are operant. They haven't always lived in the region which is now called Ghana and Ivory Coast and so forth. 1,000 years prior, we were up in the regions of what is now Mali and so forth, the ancient empire of Akara, or Ghana. We migrated to the forest belt over 1,000 years ago, and the expression of Akan Ancestral Religion changed based on our migration. We remained there for the next 1,000 years, and some of us were taken over here, forced migration, and the expression of Akan Ancestral Religion changed based on our interfacing with this region, as we said, of the Earth Mother's body. So people can observe, Akan people from other places can observe what we're doing, but they can't become Hoodoo practitioners, and nor should they seek to, because they have their own expression of Akan Ancestral Religion. An Akan person from Ghana, for example, interfacing with Akan people in North America, they wouldn't understand our use of the possum bones for divination. There are no possums in Ghana, so there would be no reason for them to use possum bones to engage in divination. We had to learn from the Abosom, which one of you Abosom, which one of you divinities govern this animal that we've never seen before? How do we utilize the bones of this animal which you govern in the form of a divinatory practice? We had to learn that and incorporate that. That's true of various forms of animal life, plant life, and mineral life unique to the Western Hemisphere that differ from what's happening on the continent of Afuraitkaitnit. So that's just an example. But of course, there are many things that are similar as well. So this is what we talk about when we're talking about Hoodoo identity. You must be Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African, a child of Ra and Ra'et, Afurayat. You must be black, melanin dominant, but spirit genetically have the capacity to receive the energy of Ra and Ra'et as an Odwirafo, as a black person, to be possessed by and communicate with the spirit of the creator and creatress, as well as the various Abosom divinities and Nsamanfo, honored ancestresses and ancestors, the Nananom Nsamanfo, honored Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit ancestresses and ancestors. You must be of the Resiu, the original Res people, race people, southern people, people from the south and so forth. You must be Akan, the people who brought the specific expression of Akan Ancestral Religion into North America. And lastly, of course, you must be from North America. You must be descendant of those who were directed by the Abosom, the deities, by the Nananom Nsamanfo, our spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, on the specific means by which to interface with this region of the Earth Mother's body, Asase Afu and Asase Ya, as well as the unique expression of the Abosom in this region of the Earth Mother, and incorporate that into our ritual practice. This is what the Hoodoo tradition's identity is comprised of. No non-black individual has ever or will ever be able to communicate with any deity, any honored ancestral spirit, has never been able to and never will be able to practice any form of authentic African ancestral religion African traditional religion, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit African Ancestral Religion, in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Anyone who says different, they're dealing with charlatans. Moreover, every single black person who's practicing some form of a ritual is not practicing the Hoodoo tradition when they look into their own blood circles. If they're from the Gola ethnic group or Kisi ethnic group from the regions of Sierra Leone and so forth, which later became Gullah and Geechee in North America, or if they're from the Ovambo ethnic group in Namibia and Angola who practice the Wanga tradition, they became Wanga practitioners who throw the Wanga, a Wanga man, Wanga woman in North America and so forth. No matter what your ethnic group is, your ancestral religious practice is buried deep within your spirit-genetic identity, your anatomy. You need to restore that tradition. It is part of your ancestral inheritance and your obligation. But when we're talking about Hoodoo, it is specifically black, it's specifically Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, it's specifically Akan, and it's specifically Akan, meaning black Akan people in North America exclusively. So, once again, we want to say, we thank you for tuning in to the podcast. Join our Hoodoo Cast Patreon community for all early releases, updates, and more. Yerase, we thank you, and Yebesha Bio, we will meet again. That's it.
Yerase, we thank you for tuning in to our podcast. See our website at hoodoocast.com to download our 31 books and access our 38 online courses. See our Hoodoo Cast Patreon community for all exclusive content, and also use our Hoodoo Cast hashtag on all social media platforms. Yebeshia.